redo. Okay. We have already read it, so we'll do it again. Now, the question is, Arjuna has got a moral stand, and Sri Krishna has to slowly explain to him that morality is okay at a lower level of consciousness. But he wants him to rise to a higher level of consciousness and do the work that the divine is telling him to do. So, the choices that are possible for Arjuna are like this. Okay, the first choice he has is he is a Kshatriya and he must fight injustice and wrong wherever it is there. Okay? So if this is his attitude, then to abstain from battling sin and wrong is itself wrong. Okay? This is one of the choices that he has got. He must fight because he is a Kshatriya, and the Kshatriya's role is to always protect the weak and fight for justice and wrong. So the Kauravas are wrong and they are indulging in injustice, therefore he has to fight them. This is the first choice he has. But he can also take
Ranganath,
yeah, tell me.
Ranganath, is this a moral thing, or is it the Kshatriya he has to protect? All these are moral rules, or what
No.
rules there?
No. They are in the Indian psyche. They are very much there in the Indian psyche. They remember the four castes. Okay?
Yeah.
Four castes. Yeah, that's very clear. The Brahmin has to have knowledge and impart his knowledge. The Kshatriya has to govern and rule and fight injustice, protect the weak. Okay? These are all very clearly in the caste system. The Vaishya, his role in society is to produce wealth and splendor and also give charity. Okay? This is his role. Beauty, splendor, wealth. Okay? That is his role. And the last one is the humble service. It's not to be belittled because humility also is a very important quality in man. So they are very, very ancient standards. They are not new standards at all. In fact, new standards.
Rangada,
Yes, tell me. Tell me.
we can say these are the four major categories of the swabha of the
Exactly.
soul. The swabha with which one is born, like,
Yes.
and Shudra is not, is servility, who can serve, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. But then these are all very four limited categories.
Yeah. Later they have been, yes. But these are the basic, major categories you can say of the swabha. And then
Yes.
there are no two individuals have the same swabha. So it's all permutation and combination, we can say. But these are the four major categories. That's what I've understood by what Sri Arvind has told about.
Absolutely correct. Because the Swabhava, he discusses also and he links it to the four caste system. It is something very deep. It is not something. In India, we have made a mess of it. Okay. Particularly the Dalit classes, we have made a total mess of it. The public, not those who think well, not that at all. They have been trying to eliminate the caste, the lowest caste, but not succeeding. Even after 75 years, we have not succeeded. And it will be very difficult to get rid of this. Because when a custom is there in society, it gets entrenched in the psyche of the people. And it's very difficult to uproot it. I'll tell you a very interesting story. Okay. What happened was, Annie Besant. Annie Besant was an English woman who was very much, she was a CEO's office, and her office was in Madras, and she was fighting for India's freedom. Then when Gandhi called for hartal and closing of all as a protest against the English, she told Gandhi, what you are doing is very, very wrong. Don't do. Hello, why is there so much noise? Oh, the children. Okay. Yeah, I understood now. Okay, so so she said that this habit will, once you put it into the Indian mind, and psyche, it will be very difficult to outlaw, uh, get rid of it. And see today what is happening when we are having buns, we are harming whom? We are harming ourselves. But the habit is not gone. So this is something very interesting. She could see that and she told Gandhi, they don't do it. And now we are still sticking to the Hartal against our own government. Horrible. And when it does, nobody benefits. Nobody. Only the poor suffer because daily wages they can't earn and that way they don't get their money. Not only that, production reduces like anything, okay, in India. And then you have a lower GDP. So everything is negative about it, yet we have not been able to get rid of the habit. So this is what she said. So these are very ancient, old things, not at all new things. They are very good principles, but we have misapplied them like everything. The highest truths are always misapplied. Okay. If you remember the first chapter of the Gita, of the essay on the Gita, Sri says that. He says that there are two things. There is an impermanent truth, valid truth, and its application in the physical world takes on limited, transient, impermanent forms. So we will not pay any attention to what is there in the Gita, which are impermanent things. Okay, we will go only to the permanent truths of the Gita. He says that very clearly right in the first chapter itself, in the essays on the Gita. So your question brought me to that. These are all very old ancient principles. And they are wonderful. If you understand the caste system, the root of it, it is something very deep. It's not at all something shallow. Okay? So, the Arjuna, who is still in a moral condition, and he has these choices in front of him. The first choice is, he is a Kshatriya, he must fight injustice and wrong. And to not do that is itself a sin for a Kshatriya. This is the first choice he has. But he can take another stand, which he did. That is to kill anybody, whatever the reason. He may be right, he may be wrong, whatever. Even a criminal. I can't kill anybody. This is a moral stand. Okay. A man who cannot give life to anybody, has no right to take life. Okay. That's the principle he will apply. So it is the second choice he has. It is wrong to kill, whatever is the reason. The third choice he has is simply support friends against enemies. Now that's a very shallow thing, but that also he can take that stand. Okay. Most human beings take that stand. We support our friends even when they are wrong, and we don't support enemies even when they are right. That's what's happening in India now against Modi. Even when he's right, they criticize him. Okay. So, and the fourth choice is exactly what Sri Krishna is going to tell him. Beyond all these attitudes, it must simply be the call of the soul. What is the highest nature in you telling you to do? You have to follow God's command. So these are the four choices he has. Okay. So with this, I start reading each sentence. All right. Arjuna, still in the ignorance. Note that, huh? He's still in the ignorance. After Sri Krishna's lecture to him of 2 hours, okay, but it's not the lecture that can change people. Because Sri Krishna is divine, and the divine can give you a glimpse of the truth at a higher level, and that's what happens to Arjuna. Because later on, he again falls back to his normal self. So, like in Sanjay's case, he was given the Divya Chakshu. Okay, he's sitting with Dhritarashtra, and he was given temporarily the Divya Chakshu. So the divine can do that. He can give you certain higher truths for at least a short time. Why short time? Because if you are not capable of permanently keeping that higher standard, you will fall back to the old one, which we call an experience. Okay, so Arjuna, still in the ignorance, may feel in his heart the call of right and justice, and may argue in his mind that abstention from battle would be a sin. Okay, so this is the first choice of decision making that he can have. Okay, would be to abstain from battle would be a sin, entailing responsibility for all the suffering, the injustice and oppression, and the evil karma of the triumph of wrong bring upon men and nations. Or second choice he has. Or he may feel in his heart the recoil from violence and slaughter and argue in his mind that all shedding of blood is a sin which nothing can justify. Nothing at all. Okay? So I will not fight. In fact, that's the attitude he takes. Okay? Both these attitudes would appeal with equal right to virtue and reason, and it would depend upon the man, the circumstances, and the time which of these might prevail in his mind or before the eyes of the world. Or the third choice that we spoke about, or he might simply feel constrained in his heart and his honor to support his friends against his enemies, the cause of the good and just against the cause of evil and oppression. Cause of the evil and oppressive. Oppressive, he is using the adjective as a noun here, by the way. He sees simply, now the last one, the liberated soul looks beyond these conflicting standards. The conflicting standards are the dualities in the physical world. Okay? He sees simply what the Supreme Self demands from him as needful for the maintenance of the bringing forward of the evolving dharma. Now this is the idea which is there very much in the Gita. Okay? Loka Sangranartham and other one, Sarvahite Rata. You have to do the work in such a way that it helps the governing of the universe and the maintenance of the order in the universe. And the second one, doing good to everybody. Okay, so these are the standards in the Gita. I'm reading the last bit again. He sees simply what the Supreme Self demands from him as needful for the maintenance of the bringing forward of the evolving dharma. He has no personal ends to serve. This is the last chapter. The one who is free. No personal loves and hatreds to satisfy. No rigidly fixed standard of action which opposes its rock line to the flexible advancing march of the progress of the human race and stands up defiant against the call of the infinite. So these are the, what Sadhguru is saying, opposes its rock line to the flexible advancing march of the progress of the human race or stands up defiant against the call of the infinite. Now, he has no personal enemies to be conquered or slain, but sees only men who have been brought up against him by circumstances and will in things to help by their opposition the march of destiny. So this is the last one, and Sri Krishna is explaining this to him. If the Gita is read continuously, it takes 2 hours to complete. Okay? And this is also something very interesting. The Gita on the field of Kurukshetra is going to take 2 hours. That's why you can very clearly see that 2 hours the enemies are not going to wait. They are going to fight. So it is symbolic clearly. The occasion is taken to give deep spiritual knowledge. Okay, so he has no personal enemies to be conquered or slain, but sees only men who have been brought up against him by circumstances and will in things to help by their opposition the march of destiny. Against them, he can have no wrath or hatred. Okay? For wrath and hatred, there is failing with mercy, with love actually. It sounds very funny, but it's a very deep thing. The divine is helping you by killing you. Okay, so we won't go into that because that will take us into absolutely another line. But Sri Aurod's thoughts and aphorisms will explain that to you. He constantly is the divine's cruelty, the divine's tortures, the divine suffering imposed on you are all because he loves you. Okay? Because Suffering and pain and difficulties are the goads. They goad you to progress. They force you to progress. They force you to conquer the obstacle. So that's why the divine is never imposing real suffering on you. It is just to encourage you to go beyond the present difficulty. Okay, so he has no personal enemies to be conquered or slain, but sees only men who have been brought up against him by circumstances and the will in things to help by their opposition in the march of destiny. Against them, he can have no wrath or hatred, for wrath and hatred are foreign to the divine nature. The Asura's desire to break and slay what opposes him, the Rakshasa's grim lust of slaughter, are impossible to his calm and peace and his all-embracing sympathy and understanding. Okay? He has no wish to injure, but on the contrary, a universal friendliness and compassion. Maitra Karuna Evacha. But this compassion is that of a divine soul, overlooking men, overlooking from above, not embracing all other souls in himself, not the shrinking of the heart and the nerves and the flesh, which is the ordinary human form of pity. There is a big difference between compassion and pity. A pity, Srirango repeats many places, is a weakness of the nerves. And that is exactly what Arjuna has got. Because the weakness is proved so clearly, he starts trembling. His hand trembles. The Gandhiva falls from his hand. He is feverish. Okay? These are all the signs of weakness in the nervous system. Okay? It's a very interesting fact. This thing that is brought out in the Gita, I have seen myself something very fantastic. Okay? I've noticed on 2 or 3 occasions, and it came back to me very powerfully. When someone is angry, okay, he starts trembling. Not everybody, but one person I saw, he started trembling. Okay, it's a nervousness, it's a weakness in the nerves. Okay, or if somebody gets a message, okay, a message that a very close person has passed away. That also I saw once. He got a telephone message, okay, that something very negative had happened to one of his known people. That he was dead, okay, he had passed away. There was a trembling in the body. Okay? So very clearly, there is a nervous pity. You may feel is a wonderful thing in human beings, but it's of course better than cruelty, no doubt about it. But it is a weakness in the nerves. Okay? Whereas compassion is a calm, quiet look. And to be seen, pity is there, not but pity, but it's compassion, mercy, love. And you see exactly what is to be done. When you have pity, you get confused. You don't know what has to be done. There's great confusion in the mind. Okay, so which is the ordinary human form of pity. Nor does he attach a supreme importance to the life of the body, okay, but looks beyond to the life of the soul and attaches to the other only an instrumental value. He is not saying that the body has no importance, but it's got an instrumental value. Like a hammer or a chisel or a screwdriver. You got a pity for that. Is to the other only an instrumental value. He will not hasten to slaughter and strife, but if war comes in the wave of the dharma, he will accept it with a large equality and a perfect understanding and sympathy for those whose power and pleasure of domination he has to break and whose joy of triumphant life he has to destroy. So that's exactly what he has to do with the Kauravas. Okay. So the 4 choices given by Sri Aurobindo, so clear. He has these 4 choices, and now he has taken only the second choice, that is wrong to kill. And he becomes nervous, and his Gandiva drops from him, he starts shaking. And finally he says very clearly, I will not fight. Now you say, I will not fight. So now Sri Krishna has to explain to him like a child. Okay? So that's the whole Gita is like that. Be absolutely above your body, mind, life. That's what he said. We read the next one. Okay. For in all he sees two things. It's a very small para, so we can read the para. Who will read? Somebody has to read the para. Tarika can't because she is in kindergarten. So today who will read? Sima, have you got the text with you? I don't think she is there. So Archana ji, you got the text with you?
Yes, Ranganath, I can read.
Okay, go ahead. Read. For in all.
For in, for in all he sees two things, the divine inhabiting every being equally, the varying manifestation unequal only in its temporary circumstances. In the animal and man, in the dog, the unclean outcast, and the learned and virtuous Brahmin, he the saint and the sinner, in the indifferent and the friendly and the hostile, in those who love him and benefit, and those who hate him and afflict. He sees himself, he sees God, and has at heart for all the same equal kindliness, the same divine affection. Circumstances may determine the outward clasp or the outward conflict, but can never affect his equal eye, his open heart, his inner embrace of all. And in all his actions, there will be the same principle of soul, of perfect equality, and the same principle of work, the will of the divine in him, active for the need of the race in its gradually developing advance towards the Godhead.
Very small para by Srinivas standards, and he is referring to two things. So we'll read the para, and I'll give you the reference to the Gita. There are two references. So, for in all, he sees two things. First of all, he is a divine inhabiting every being equally. The varying manifestation, unequal only in its temporary circumstances. So there is a deep soul within, and there is the outward nature of body, mind, life. The inner nature and the outer nature. These are the two things. The inner nature is the real thing, and the outer nature is the circumstantially built body, mind, life by universal nature. Okay? These are the two things. And very interesting, the varying manifestation, unequal only in its temporary circumstances. Because there are people who are very beautiful, there are people who are very ugly, there are people who are very capable, there are very people who are very clumsy, there are people intelligent, and there are some who are not intelligent. So how can this be, you may think, if the divine is there everywhere? How can the divine create ugliness? You may think like that. But this is the outward nature. Okay? And it depends on the individual soul at which level he is, and according to that comes the manifestation. In fact, Srimba has a very interesting comment. Uh, I think it's in the evening talks. He says, that it's easier for me to see the divine in a beautiful face and less in an ugly face. So that's it. If you are limiting yourself only to the outer nature. So is the divine unequal? No. The divine is equal in everything, but this is the superficial, external, physical fact which is in time and space. That's why there is this difference. That's what Shendra is explaining. Varying manifestation, unequal only in its temporary circumstances. Okay? So it's interesting, but that's exactly what is. I go to the next sentence. In the animal and man, in the dog, the unclean, outcast, and the learned and virtuous Brahmin, in the saint and the sinner, in the indifferent and the friendly and the hostile, in those who love him and benefit, and those who hate him and afflict, he sees himself. He sees God and has at heart for all the same equal kindliness, the same divine affection. Okay? So this is the this is chapter 5, verse 18. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Pandita, those who are wise, they are equal eyed. Samadarshina, equal minded, if you want, equal minded to everybody. And who are they? The Brahmin. Vidya Vinaya Sampanni, the one who is a wise man, Brahmin man with lot of knowledge. Brahmane, okay. Gavi, in a cow. Hastini, in an elephant. Okay. Shuni, a dog. Chaiva Shvapake, a lower caste. Okay. Pandita Samadarshina. This from chapter 5, verse 18. That's what Shanti is explaining here. Okay. Then, circumstances may determine the outward class or the outward conflict, but can never affect his equal eye. So there's translating equal eye, very interesting. It is almost a translation of Samadarshina. Okay, so equal eye. His open heart, his inner embrace of all. In all his actions, there will be the same principle of soul, not principle of the outer nature, principle of soul, a perfect equality, and the same principle of work, the will of the divine in him, active for the need of the race in its gradually developing advance towards the body. Okay. So in chapter 12, verse 13, he says this, okay, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana, not an enemy to anybody. Okay. Adveshta. Dveshta is enemy. Adveshta, not an enemy to everything. Sarva Bhutana. Maitra Karuna Evacha. So he has friendliness and compassion. Karuna Evacha. Nirmamo. Okay. No egoism at all. Nirmamo. Nirahankara. No ego. Okay. Sama dukkha sukha. In happiness and in sorrow, he is absolutely the same. Okay. Sama dukkha sukha. And finally, Kshami, the one who can be calm and allow forgiveness. So this is what she's saying in this very small pack. So this is what now.
Dada,
Tell me.
Dada, how are you referring the particular verse? Is there any reference given? I am not finding any reference from that Gita. How are you finding, Dada?
Okay. Long ago when I read the Gita, the essay on the Gita, I have put down in my book, I have written out the relevant portions. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dada. Thank you very much. Thanks.
I am reading from my own book. I am not reading the Gita. Okay. I have the reference and I have read the Gita, therefore I have put the references very clearly. Okay. All right. So now we can go to the next one. Okay. All this has to be explained by Sri Krishna to Arjuna, who is still in ignorance and he thinks it's absolutely wrong to kill anybody. That's his idea. Okay. You must remember also that killing and life, okay, they are not opposites. This is very important. In our ignorance, we think that killing someone is bad. Okay. But the Gita is very clear. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Okay. There is no hanta and there is no hata. Nobody is killed and nobody is the killer. Because the soul is aja nitya, shashvatoyam purana. Okay. The soul is ancient, eternal. Okay. It cannot be killed. Weapons do not cleave it, the water cannot wet it, the wind cannot dry it. That's what the Gita says. Okay, so now we go to the next one. Again, the sign of the divine worker. So, who has got the text? Kiran, you have got the
Shall
text?
I read, Dada?
Okay, if you have got the text, you read.
Yes, Dada. Okay.
Go ahead.
Again, the sign of the divine worker is that which is central to the divine consciousness itself, a perfect inner joy and peace which depends upon nothing in the world for its source or its continuance. It is innate. It is the very stuff of the source consciousness. It is the very nature of divine being. The ordinary man depends upon outward things for his happiness. Therefore, he has desire. Therefore, he has anger and passion, pleasure and pain, joy and grief. Therefore, he measures all things in the balance of good fortune and evil fortune. None of these things can affect the divine soul. It is ever satisfied without any kind of dependence. Nitya trupto nirashrayah. For its delight, its divine ease, its happiness, its glad light are eternal within, ingrained in itself. Atma rakhihi. Antah sukhoh. Antar aramas
Okay.
Tathantar Jyotir Eva Yaha. What joy it takes in outward things is not for their sake, not for things which it seeks in them and can miss, but for the self in them, for their expression of the divine, for that which is eternal in them and which it cannot miss. It is without attachment to their outward touches, but finds everywhere the same joy that it finds in itself because its self is there, has become oneself with the self of all beings, because it is united with the one and equal Brahman in them to all their differences. Brahma Yoga, Yuktatma, Sarva Bhutatma, Bhutatma. It doesn't rejoice in the touches of the pleasant or feel anguish in the touches of the unpleasant. Neither the wounds of things, nor the wounds of friends, nor the wounds of enemies can disturb the firmness of its outgazing mind or bewilder its receiving heart. The soul is in its nature, as the Upanishad puts it, abhranam, abhranam, without
Yeah.
wound or care. In all things, it has the same imperishable ananda, sukham, aksham, asnute.
Sukham akshayam.
Sukham, sukham, akshayam, asnute. Thank you.
I got 7 minutes. We'll try to go through. This mainly a repetition of what we have just now said. Okay, so again, the sign of the divine worker. Now, this is Ravana speaking and explaining the Gita. Again, the sign of the divine worker is that which is central to the divine consciousness itself. And what is that? A perfect inner joy and peace which depends upon nothing in the world for its source or its continuance. All our joy in the world has got a cause. Okay? It's you can hear good news, you feel happy. You hear bad news, you feel unhappy. Okay? That's a normal thing. And it's all transitory. I have good food one day and I feel very satisfied. I have bad food one day, I am very dissatisfied. So everything has got a beginning and an end. That is what is meant by transiency. In the physical world, there is a cause for everything which is the beginning, and at the end, it filters out. It doesn't last. Good things or bad things also. As they say, time is the greatest healer. When you say that, it's a great truth. It's a truth of everything in the physical world is temporary, nothing permanent. Okay? So there is a perfect inner joy and peace which depends upon nothing in the world for its source or continuance. It is innate. The happiness is in the soul, not in the body, mind, life. Okay? The body, mind, life, the joy will be short-lived. But the man who is liberated himself, he is always perfectly the perfect inner joy and peace. It is the very stuff of the soul's consciousness. It is the very nature of divine being. The ordinary man depends upon outward things for his happiness. There we are, exactly what we discussed. Everything, you need something to make you happy. Okay? Or you also need something to make you unhappy. Okay? Therefore, he has desire. Okay? Not the word therefore. When you need something, that is desire comes in. You want happiness. Therefore, desire has to come. Therefore, he has anger and passion. Desire when he wants something pleasant, and anger and passion when he doesn't get what he wants. Okay? So they always go together. If desire is there, you will have pleasure, but you will also have unpleasant experiences. Okay? Suffering also will be there. Therefore, he has anger and passion, pleasure and pain, joy and grief. These are the dualities in the physical world. Good fortune. Sorry. Therefore, He measures all things in the balance of good fortune and ill fortune. There is no such thing as good fortune, ill fortune. Everything is actually good fortune for the soul, not for the body mind life. The good fortune and evil fortune is for the body mind life. So when the divine is thinking for the good of the soul, he doesn't mind at all making you go through a little bit of pain, because it's like the doctor operating. Okay, he's going to take out something from your hand and he's going to give you a little pain by cutting, but he's going to do it for good, your own good. Okay? So suffering is good for the soul, but not for the body mind life. So you have to develop samatha so that you don't be affected by all these things. That's the reason. Therefore, he has desire. Therefore, he has anger and passion, pleasure and pain and joy and grief. Therefore, he measures all things in the balance of good fortune and evil fortune. None of these things can affect the divine soul, because he is not identified with the body mind life. He is identified with the self or the psychic being. It is ever satisfied. Okay, here use the word. Okay, nitya tripto, nitya tripto, ever satisfied. Where is it gone? Now, it is ever satisfied without any kind of dependence. Nitya tripto, nirashraya, not depending on anything. For its delight, its divine ease, its happiness, its glad light and eternal within, its glad light are eternal within, ingrained in itself. Okay? Atma Rati, Atma Rati, engaged in the Atma. Anta Sukho, Antar Arama. Okay? Anta Sukha, you are happy within, and Antar Arama, peace and calm and even a quiet happiness. Tadhantar Jyoti Eva Sya. Okay? Tadhantar Jyoti Eva Yaha. The one who is always happy and there is light within his soul. Tatha Antar Jyoti Eva Sya. He has always got the light of knowledge in his soul. What joy it takes in outward things is not for their sake, not for things which it seeks in them and can miss, but for the self in them. Okay? Now, this is a very interesting concept. Today we may not have time, we have only 2 minutes. So we'll do this because it raises a very interesting question about the self. Okay? And also about the enjoyment in the physical world. Okay? Normal idea is a yogi is when he is very happy and he is laughing, then it is not a very spiritual attitude. Okay? You will feel like that. Ordinary man may feel like that. But uh, a real yogi, a real liberated soul is always happy and doesn't mind being happy even in the physical world. He can laugh, he can. In fact, Sri Aurobindo said, humor is the salt of life. Okay, so he can be very, very happy. So he can also live in utter luxury, but if he has to live in poverty, he is not affected at all. Okay? So it's nearing 8:40. So I suggest, because a little more is there, particularly this self. There is a reference in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and also in the synthesis. Where Sri Aurobindo says that when one loves his wife, it is for the sake of the self. Okay? Now, this is true at 2 levels, as he points out in the synthesis. The first level, at the lower level, level 1, when I love somebody, it is not for that person, it's for myself, to satisfy myself. So, love of the wife is for yourself, not for the wife, number 1. Number 2, when you are in the higher level of consciousness, everybody is your own self. Therefore, it is the love of wife, love of children, love of everybody, love of enemies, love of strangers is your own self, the enjoyment of yourself. Okay? So that's what is there in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and Sri Aurobindo also mentioned it in the synthesis of yoga. Okay, it's 8:40, and we have got a little more still left. Okay, Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. That also will finish this next time. We don't have the time today. Okay, I'll make a note, and we'll start from this self and finish it next time. Okay? So, have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you, Rangada.
I'm cutting
Thank you,
my.
Rangada.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you, Arun.